CNN's debate between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump is not the only one taking place today. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was barred from CNN's debate, announced this week he will be answering questions tonight in his own debate.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here. Over 70% of Americans want a different choice than Presidents Biden or Trump. They're tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. Presidents Trump and Biden colluded with CNN to block me from representing your voices, but I'm not going to let them silence us. Go to therealdebate.com to watch me answer the same debate questions live. I'm going to be on that debate stage with or without their permission.
Many on X are rejoicing over this news. One user writing, "The reason why I think this is going to work so well for Kennedy is that it is fun and new. 10 years from now, you will distinctly remember the details of yet another Biden and Trump argument? Of course not. We already have seen that same petty fight again and again, but will you remember tuning in to the, quote, protest debate hosted by a candidate who was unfairly excluded? Obviously, yes, this will be a night to remember. I'm going to throw a debate party for family and friends. I'll turn on the Kennedy Dr. Phil interview at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll all watch the Kennedy debate together at 9. It's unclear whether Kennedy will be answering his own questions or responding to Trump and Biden's back and forth, but his debate will be broadcast live on X at the very same time of the CNN throwdown. I'm very curious to see that as well. I don't think he'll be reacting. I think he's going to be giving us an alternative to what we're seeing on CNN. I think that's his vibe, right?
Yeah, I think it sounds to me like, I'm not quite sure what the format is, he's going to be trying to answer the same questions that's being posed to them while it's going on, which is great. You know, I think it's an absolute scandal, however, that he is just not in the debate itself. We can blame CNN a little bit for allowing that to happen, but of course, you know, they were trying to get Trump and Biden, and really it's on Trump and Biden, who were dead set against having a debate with only each other, who both of them agreed that there should be no RFK Jr. in the debate. They just want it to be between the two of them. I think it's, you know, at a time where so much is being said about the threat to democracy in this country, those criticisms ring utterly hollow from frankly, the Biden camp, if they're unwilling to include part of the democratic process has been for decades, has been debates between the major presidential candidates, not just the top two. Perot was in the debate when he was polling well in the Clinton-Bush election. RFK Jr. doesn't have quite those poll numbers, but he's not at like the third-party 1% nothing numbers either. He has gained the support of a significant number of Americans. I mean, I think Gary Johnson, the Libertarian Party candidate, should have been in the national debates in 2016 when he had numbers that were approaching the threshold at which the debate commission's rules would have kicked in, saying he ought to be in there. Now they don't have to go by any rules because they rejected the debate commission. They're just doing whatever the hell they want. They should have included RFK Jr. It is a moral scandal that he's not on that debate stage.
Right. It seems that RFK Jr. appreciates democracy, is willing to be an example of popular democracy and allowing independent voices to thrive through the electoral process. The Biden camp also likes democracy, but maybe a little bit less than that. I think they would like to have the uniparty control what candidates we have to pick from, but we still get to pick. And Trump, after the interview with Tom Jones yesterday, I'm not so sure everyone supporting Donald Trump is very pro-democracy at all, but we will see what that looks like in the debate tonight. Very curious.
Because firing federal employees is an affront to democracy. In my view, it's not. In my view, when the president, whoever comes in, they're going to do that, and that's just fine.
They can't fire them, Robby. It's just a list. They're just putting out a list of 100 names to intimidate them so that they quit.
Well, the liberal administrative state has tried to stop Trump from even being on the ballot in several states. So who's defending democracy here? They don't want you. They're trying to put him in prison. They don't want you to be able to vote for him. They say democracy is at stake, but we're doing everything we can to stop you from voting for Donald Trump. They're also doing everything they can, by the way, behind the scenes to make it more difficult for RFK Jr. to be on the ballot in various places. There's been mainstream reporting on like the war room that's been set up to deal with RFK Jr. when they, I think, were more concerned that he was significantly going to be taking away Democratic votes. Now we know there's less evidence of that that RFK Jr. is specifically taking away from Biden. He seems to be taking from both camps in somewhat equal measure, also probably attracting voters who are just not going to vote for Biden or Trump in any way, shape, or form. So maybe there's less worry about him, but I think they would be. I think both camps really would have been worried about him on the debate stage because now, while he is a somewhat older man himself, he is in much more robust, including with his difficulty speaking that he's talked very publicly about his voice issue. He is still a younger and more charismatic and more collected speaker. I mean, I think even if you don't agree with him, and it's sort of an objective statement at this point, than either Trump or Biden. Again, that's not to say that I agree with his policies more, or I think he's more right or something, but he has a more compelling and energetic performance than our very senior team of mainstream candidates.
Yes, he can put more interesting words together in a better order and maybe faster. I do think the Democrats...
Underrated skills in a debate.
Right, apparently. I think, the Biden camp, the establishment Democrats that are talking about democracy being in peril, it's like, well, we need to take Trump off the ballot so we have a little bit less democracy now so we can have more later, because if he gets into office, he's going to get rid of it. But I think
it's the experiment? Do you want one cookie now or two cookies later?
I think that's the case they're making to the American
people. They want
people
more democracy.
Yeah, I think they're worried
democracy.
that he has a really strong shot at winning the Electoral College and not the popular vote. And I don't think there's enough movement around getting rid of the Electoral College, or if the Supreme Court would uphold that kind of legislation if it were to ever be passed. And so I think the Democrats are a little bit desperate right now because they're not willing to make the case in the way that RFK Jr. is about corporate power in the country. I'm interested to see what RFK Jr. is going to say about this recent ruling. He has ads running on X right now promoting the debate.
The Purdue Pharma one, yeah.
Yes, the Purdue Pharma Supreme Court ruling. We covered it on the show. If you're not up to snuff on it, basically Purdue Pharma did some bad stuff and the Supreme Court made a decision on it. This is something RFK Jr. had paid attention to for quite some time, and the American Values PAC was formerly like the American Pharma something PAC, Accountability PAC. It was the People's Pharma movement, very focused on getting accountability to what RFK Jr. calls a criminal enterprise. So I'm very interested to see what RFK Jr. is willing to talk about that Trump and Biden won't even touch in their answers to the same questions.
Yeah, I would love to hear him talk about that. I suspect he will. I suspect we're more likely to hear from him what kind of accountability measures he would implement to deal with the opioid crisis. I think we're way more likely to hear that from RFK Jr. than we are from Trump or Biden. But of course, they could always prove us wrong.
They could always prove us wrong. It's happened before, but I think they're both going to be playing it safe tonight because they know RFK Jr. is not on the same debate stage, and they love painting him as this guy that's very fringe, and I just don't think people are buying it. I think him not being on the debate stage and the way the campaign has postured themselves as this outcast is making Trump posturing himself like an outcast while on this debate covered by CNN with 70 million viewers. He kind of looks like the establishment party pick right now with this RFK Jr. narrative out there, which is very interesting for the many populist voters in the country that are sympathetic to that.
My fear is that it's just going to be two debates with the CNN moderators just asking Biden questions that he can't even really answer about his age, because they'll say, this many Americans, even Democrats, think you're too old for this job. Are you too old for this job? And he'll be like, come on, man, I'm in really good shape. That's going to be the Biden stuff, which is like, that is certainly a fair question because people do have a lot of concerns about his age, but there isn't really any way that he can address that. I mean, he is old. There's nothing he can do about that. And then on the other side, I'm worried then it's going to be that for Biden, and then for Trump, it's just going to be all questions about January 6th or election stuff and nothing else, because that is the issue that most animates the mainstream media that guides so much of their coverage, which I think it's fair to ask him some of, but there are so many other questions about the economy, about immigration, about foreign policy. I really hope foreign policy comes up. You probably do as well. With Israel, Gaza, we know obviously what Biden thinks about it because he's in charge of the policy. I'm really curious if Trump has criticisms of that, if he would support Israel even more vigorously, more vehemently, as many Republicans do and want him to do, or if he might, every now and then he has a kind of maverick streak on foreign policy where he says we're overly involved in other places in the world. There's currently no love lost between him and Netanyahu. He might say something totally different. So I really hope he gets a question on that.
I would really like for Biden to hold Trump to a concrete position on Israel, Gaza, not just say, I would handle it better than you're handling it, but really say, what would you do differently and be precise about it? Trump is so flippant. He gives himself the room to make an entirely different decision once he's in public office than potentially it stands today by just being non-committal. And I think I have a big question around whether or not Biden can last this long talking to many people. We've seen Trump give very long speeches. There's questions about both of their age and mental fortitude at this point in time. But I think my question is, what will Biden look like throughout the duration of the debate? It's the longest we've seen him speak in a public setting in 4 years?
It's hard to talk that long. I actually participated in a very intense debate for Zero Hedge last night on immigration that was moderated by Emily Jashinsky and Ryan Grimm, who used to be in the Rising Universe hosting some things here. And I didn't realize it was going to go for 2 hours. And by like the hour and a half mark, I got some gotcha question. I was just like, I don't care. Ask the other person. Like it's an exhausting thing to do a really knockdown, drag out debate for a long time, even with when you're feeling very energetic. I mean, I guess this was like my 6th hour of talking during the day because I do our show and I did some other stuff and then I did this. But so it's no easy task, and Biden has not exactly shown that he can easily talk in front of a crowd anymore when he gets remotely hostile questions without a teleprompter. Right. When he gets remotely hostile questions from reporters at press conferences, he's really seemed to struggle. Well, we will have some debate coverage tomorrow, obviously, with Amber Duke will be here for their usual session. I'm going to come in as well. We're also going to be making some content during the debate tonight, so look for that on YouTube. We're going to be reacting to the debate tomorrow with some interesting alternative candidates, including the Libertarian Party's Chase Oliver, and we expect to have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. himself. So you will not want to miss any of that coverage. We're looking forward to it. We'll see you tomorrow, later tonight and tomorrow.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. Our debate coverage tonight and tomorrow. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available wherever you get your podcasts.
See you soon.
Bye.